climbing was really my only passion. I wasn't exceptionally good. I definitely wasn't a prodigy. I got, I think, 71st place. Not doing well at the World Championship and going through that process of really learning to work harder than I had ever done before allowed me to qualify for the Olympics. I won my first World Cup and I was the youngest to do so. I had my second race, I lost by 0.08 seconds. You really can't control so much that happens in your athletic career. And I was just like, this is a part of my story. I actually broke the world record again with the bronze medals in Paris. They all like tarnish like a lot. And I was like, this is kind of cool. This is never going to be as shiny as the day I got it. And so it motivates me to improve. You're going to not have just a linear progression. You're going to run into some stuff and you have to look at the process in those hard times. A lot of people tend to put themselves in a box and say like, I'll set these realistic goals. But I think the only way to really succeed is when you have no limits.
Welcome to the Winners Club podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Wilson, and today I'm here with Olympic medalist Sam Watson. Sam, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We're going to get into your mindset as an Olympian, but first I want to hear about your journey to become an Olympian. So let's start from the beginning. What are your first memories as a climber?
First memories as a climber was I was 2 years old, and my mom refused to buy a 8-foot pool fence instead of a 6-foot one. So she bought the 6-foot one. And she was like, there's no way that this is going to be a danger. I was 2 years old. I ended up dragging a chair from outside towards that pool fence and trying to get over it. And luckily I was stopped from doing so. But that was the first time I ever tried to scale something when I was 2 years old. Then when I was maybe 4 or 5, I started wedging myself between two pillars and then climbing the brick walls outside my house. Then my 5th birthday was the first time you could actually go to the gym, my local gym. It was the first day I could, and I went climbing. I eventually joined a team that did competitive climbing, and it's been basically the only sport I've stuck with throughout my childhood and early adult life.
Is it true that in 2nd grade, your teacher asked what you wanted to be when you grew up, and you said a rock climber? You're probably the first person in history to say that, because at the time it wasn't like a profession, was it?
Yeah, barely. Probably almost 0 full-time rock climbers at that point, but I definitely had a passion for something, and it actually fit quite right in because there was people that said, I want to be a princess and I want to be an astronaut, and, not realistic careers, but I also put a very not realistic career and ended up working out, so.
Yeah, at 12 or 13, you specialized in speed climbing, but when did you make that decision to try to go pro and become an Olympian? And how do you change your lifestyle into that?
So I think I decided that I wanted to go pro or become an Olympian at least when I was 14 years old in 2020. It was just announced that speed climbing would have its own medal at the Olympics. I was like, okay, this is a realistic shot. I can probably make it in LA in 2028. So I was like, okay, I want to start, training and doing this. And it was still a very high process. Like there was still a lot of things that had to go right. Like I still would have to qualify, and I didn't exactly know what that process would be like yet, but I had this goal, like I wanted to make LA. When I was 15, competed at my first youth nationals for speed climbing, where I got 3rd place and I qualified for the youth world team. Got 2nd there, and then that allowed me to get a spot to compete because I was too young, but they gave me an exception to compete to get on the adult team and go on the full-on what's called the World Cup circuit in climbing, which is like the highest level outside the Olympics of professional climbing. I went to my first World Cup event in May of 22. And it was 6 total events that year. And I just remember sort of falling in love with the process of improving between each of these events and really starting to enjoy that. I won my first World Cup and I was the youngest to do so in September of 22. And I just remember like, this is kind of what I want to do. Like I had some stuff going right as far as like my social media and like trying to build a brand and a lot of that stuff. And I was like, okay, I think I can seriously focus for trying to qualify for the Olympics next year. And so I decided, okay, I want to qualify in 23 so I can have basically a year to train. So I was like, my goal is to win the World Championship and then get my spot to go to the Paris Olympics and solidify myself World Champion. But I went to the World Championship. I felt super prepared. I was like, I'm ready. I'm probably the best in the world at this point. Like I have a great shot at getting an Olympic ticket here. And I did absolutely horrible. I got, I think, 71st place. I happened to, the way that speed climbing works, it's a lot like Formula One, where you have 2 qualifying laps that seed you into the final race. And at that point, I had never missed a final. I had made every finals, but I just had 2 bad qualifying laps. And the pressure kind of got to me and just kind of didn't work out, and I wasn't really ready for that point. And so I missed my chance to qualify the first time in the World Championships. And then I remember this exactly. The next chance I had to qualify was at the Pan American Games, so the Continental Championship. Only the winner would get it. So very kind of high pressure there. And it was about 74 days away. And I remember that was the first time I really decided, all right, I'm going to go through this plan and gonna build it all out, gonna do a proper like strength conditioning, strength cycle, power cycle to get into the best shape I can possibly be to win this event for Pan America. Trained so hard, like sort of took a step back from like the ego that I had developed of being really successful really young, and listened to people, became more coachable, embraced all of that. And so I took home my Olympic ticket. I won the Pan American Championship in October of 23. And then, so I qualified for the Paris Games. And I think that, honestly, not doing well at the World Championship and going through that process of really like learning to work harder than I had ever done before allowed me to eventually rise up and win a medal in Paris. I truly believe that was a very formative experience.
I know the conversation is getting good, but I wanted to tell you about the sponsor for today's episode, PhysiVantage. Reach your peak performance with PhysiVantage Nutrition. Trusted by elite athletes, including World Cup champions, Olympians, and top pros, PhysiVantage is also the choice of everyday athletes looking to optimize strength, recovery, stamina, and long-term health. PhysiVantage Nutrition will help you speed up muscle recovery and strength gains, boost endurance and power output, and reduce injury risk while supporting faster rehab. The best part is that if you use the code WINNER15 at checkout, you get 15% off any of their products. Check out more about PhysiVantage by clicking the link in the description.
At the age of 16, you won the World Cup gold. You became the first American and youngest person ever to do that. So what do you think led to you achieving that? Like what kind of sacrifices, what do you think you did differently from other athletes? Because you said you also weren't like a natural athlete, like you.
Yeah, I think what's kind of funny is I'm not like, I never played that many other sports as a kid. I played basketball for a bit and I fenced a little bit, but climbing was really my only passion. Yeah. And I wasn't exceptionally good. Like I definitely wasn't a prodigy. Like I was not placing first in youth regionals, youth whatever nationals. Like I really wasn't. During COVID was when I started really going after speed climbing, just because I really liked the process of improving. The route's the same every time, and I could just be in the gym, be half empty, like the 20% of the occupancy rating of the building, and I'd just be speed climbing, and I really fell in love with doing that. As far as, so the Edinburgh World Cup was in September of 2022. The circumstances actually kind of really allowed for it because it was supposed to be in Guangzhou, China, but due to COVID, they canceled it and relocated it to Edinburgh. And I just sort of remembered, I went for a walk the previous day. I was walking through like this field. It did happen to be sunny out for like 2 hours that day in Scotland. I was just like, I do want to win. Like I enjoyed the process of winning. And I was like, I think it's possible that I can win this event, and I'm like really believing in myself that I can do this. And that day the Queen died. that was the day after the Queen died. I was like, considering it being canceled, I was like, wow, but the event did go on. We had a moment of silence for her, and I just remember I had that mentality. It was almost like a switch. I was like, I really am going to try to win this event, when at the time it was like not that, like I was super young, my rookie year in the circuit, like, probably out of grasp for a lot of people. And I did. Like I think the circumstances definitely really helped. That's why it took me a whole nother year to win another event, but I kind of believed that I could win, and I identified with that, and that really helped get the first World Cup victory in Edinburgh.
That led you to Paris, or after winning the Pan Am Games, it led you to Paris. So what was your mindset going into Paris? Were you super serious, super nervous, just trying to have fun? What was your mindset going into it?
I was definitely have always had the idea of climbing is a very small sport. Climbing is very niche. It doesn't really have the platform that a lot of other sports do. So I was like, okay, the Olympics is a platform for me. Like, I truly believe in the community that speed climbing has as a sport. I truly believe in our camaraderie and the culture it's developed. So I was like, I think the Olympics, being on that stage, is just a platform for that growth, and I get to be whatever part of that I can be. I think I had the mentality, and I had a little bit of expectations of, I think, world number 2 or 3 at that point, and I held the world record. I still had some really tight competition. Like I was not, there wasn't like a gap. Like it was like kind of interchanging. I was just like, I'm ready to, kind of execute on my process and do well. So I set the world record in April of last year. I broke a new one in the qualifying of Paris. And then, like, I just had the mentality, like, I can do it. I can win this event. And, like, it's any other thing. And, like, I kind of rose to that stage.
So you weren't even really feeling the pressure. You kind of just felt like it was another competition to a degree.
I think if you ask any athlete when they go to an event that big, like, are you feeling the pressure? They say no, they're lying.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there was a lot of different stress that I wasn't really used to. Like, I think a lot of people will say, like, oh, the media is one big thing. Like, the amount of coverage and messages you're getting, and people that have never put effort into, like, caring about what you do, it suddenly do. And it's really, like, interesting. Like, oh, wow, this is on a massive stage of, you know, what I do every time is now on the biggest stage possible. And you're planning a year in advance to be in your best physical shape for that as well. So it's pretty crazy.
In the semifinal, you made a tiny mistake of being just a few millimeters off of a hold, which cost you to miss out on the finals by literally 0.1 of a second. How'd you react immediately after that race, and then how'd you regroup for the small final?
Yeah, so I had my second race. I lost by 0.08 seconds. Just barely didn't win. Lost to another Chinese athlete who I think is the second or third fastest in the world now. And I was well aware that I didn't have the margin to make a mistake. Like, speed climbing is 30 movements at max speed. And I was like, no one's going to hand me a gold medal. It's going to be like, my best can be the best. Like, I have an opportunity to win, but, like, it's by no means guaranteed. And I'd never really set that pressure for myself. Like, I don't necessarily know if that's a mistake of saying, like, I wanted to win really badly, and that there's, you know, different ways to approach that question. But after I lost, I was just like, okay, that was the most important race of my life, you know, guaranteeing an Olympic medal, you know, going for a final is obviously, like, everyone wants to win a gold medal. But I was like, okay, now I have to win a medal, right? I have the small final, which is for the third and fourth place. And I was like, I don't want to get fourth at the Olympics. That's, like, the worst thing ever. So I had my race, and I just had the mandatory 5 minutes of rest. And so I just, like, kept my composure, and I was like, okay, just gonna execute my process one more time. And then I actually broke the world record again with 4:74, which was 0.01 second above the winning time for the gold medal. So I was a little, like, kind of disappointed that I was like, man, I would have won. It's just barely in the knockout format. But I think, you know, kind of everything happens for a reason. Right. It was an amazing, like, final, like, and, you know, the way the sport played out, like, I think everyone worked so hard that I'm not going to, like, throw a fit over, like, you know, I deserve to win. I'm happy with what happened. Like, I didn't really have any regrets with my training. Like, I put a lot of work into it, and, like, you can grow from it. Yeah. And
you did break the world record. So how did it feel at the end of it? You know, leaving the Olympics, what was your overall feeling after the Olympics?
For that race specifically, it kind of just, like, happened. Like, I was just in good physical shape. Like, I wasn't, like, people were like, oh, he's, like, raging, he didn't win, or didn't get to the final, so he's gonna break his own world record. Like, not really. Like, it's just kind of the same process. Like, I was just, you know, happy to be there. So I won my medal. I was like, okay, this is great. Like, I read the box, the inscription of the Olympics is like, it's that the Olympic medal is forever. You know, this is always part of your identity. This is like a piece of the Eiffel Tower, the original one, which is, like, such a cool mark on it. And then something else funny that I kind of thought is, like, with the bronze medals in Paris, they all, like, tarnish, like, a lot. And I was like, this is kind of cool, because, like, this is, you know, never going to be as shiny as the day I got it. And so it, you know, it motivates me to improve. And I mean, I do want to win a gold medal at some point, and I think I can. And
now the grind hasn't stopped, because now you're on your way to your next World Cup. Do you have any bold predictions, if you want to say it now, any predictions?
So my current PB is 4:64, which is 0.1 below my current world record. I don't know if I'll quite get there as far as a big part of climbing is reaction time, like how fast you get off the ground. So if you false start, you're disqualified. So it's like, if you're really trying to push in practice, like, I don't really care if I false start 10 times, because I'm just trying to get as low as possible. But in competition, that's not really the same mentality I approach it to, because I'm just trying to win the competition first and foremost. So I think, yeah, a couple of world records can happen this season for sure. But again, like, winning is the biggest thing for me.
All right. That was a bit about your story. So now we can get into your mindset. First off, do you have any practices that you do to take care of your mental health? Like, how do you deal with the highs and lows of your sport?
Going into the Olympics, I really did prioritize the way I felt mentally, because there's so much stuff that can happen. And there's so many ways to get wound up in the stress, like, of what you're doing. And something that I always approach it with is just, this is just a part of your story. Like, I think a lot of people tend to get really stressed out over minuscule things that can happen, or even not minuscule things that can happen. Like, For example, when I told you that story of the Edinburgh, like people would complain, like, oh, the weather's awful, like it's like a not good competition, the Queen died, like, and I was just like, this is a part of my story. Like this is a cool story to tell. Like my first World Cup win was with all these crazy circumstances. And it's just kind of the way I think about it. Like you really can't control so much that happens in your athletic career. And I like that goes like, it's part of your story. And so that's kind of like the way I approach it. Like perspective is another thing. Like I feel so incredibly lucky and blessed to be on the stage that I had, and that climbing was in the Olympics, and I get all these eyes on me, and to be the best person I can be, like regardless of what happens on that stage. So that's like my first goal. And I know like I've put in so much effort in training that the actual execution is just kind of it. Like it's not like I have to try really, really, really hard for a certain outcome, as you would in some sports. Like it's just sort of, it's so like low margin error and like fragile unless you're just kind of executing on what you've already trained for.
That's like the foundation of mental work, is controlling what you can control. But you have worked with a mental coach, is that right, or not, or something like that?
I've worked with a sports psychologist in some ways. A lot of stuff like the idea of like mindset training is something that is really kind of hard to like instill in someone without them really, really wanting to be like embrace that ideas.
You've done like meditation, journaling, like what are the kind of practices that you do like that are actionable?
So I actually think of competing as a form of meditation. Like when I'm competing, your ideal is just you're in that flow state, you're really trying to win. I do like it's sort of like a meditation technique. It's called like centering. There's different names for it, where I would say like you go back to the breath, where you feel yourself breathing and you can kind of control it. Your mind, you have all these thoughts, and then you just kind of go back to the breath. Like it doesn't matter. I know who I am. I know the work I put in. Like I'm ready to execute, and that was originally the goal. And naturally, your mind like drifts away from that, and sort of things happen like, oh, I'm stressed because they're calling me out late, or we're off schedule, or this isn't what I thought it was going to be, and you can just kind of flow back to the breath and be ready for whatever happens.
When you broke your first world record, you said the phrase, "Why not me?" How did you come up with that mantra, and then how did you develop the belief to break that world record?
That was not me. That's full plagiarism. I'm a big basketball fan. Derrick Rose, when he won Rookie of the Year and was approaching his first MVP season, he said, like, why not me? Why can't I be the MVP of the league? And I really like that. Like, I think a lot of people tend to put themselves in a box and say, like, I'll set these goals. I'll set whatever, like kind of realistic, like take with their expectations. But I think the only way to really succeed is to not have limits for yourself like that. And it does come with a lot of disappointments, like especially things like regarding stuff out of my control. Like I think in the commercial sphere, I have this a lot with like, oh, why shouldn't this company want to work with me? And they're just like, no. So there's a lot of ways that I have that mentality, and it doesn't quite work out. But for that one and for the actual execution of training, then I don't see, like, it's a great way to approach things when you have no limits.
Yeah, as long as you keep believing, something might happen. You never know.
Yeah, I also kind of approach life with the way of like, I call it the hash rate theory, where the way that you mine a Bitcoin is you're guessing a problem to a really hard math problem. You're guessing the answer. And you generate, each of those guesses is called a hash, right? And the more powerful your graphics card is, that's the higher your hash rate is. And so life is just a big process of making little guesses, and things happen to work out whenever you hit those guesses and you happen to sort of get lucky. And so put yourself in the best situation to get lucky when that happens, right? So much is out of your control, but you just kind of build that up and things tend to happen for you.
Yeah. That was a little bit too advanced of an example for me, but I get it. I understand that.
Yeah, that was actually the way like I always thought about it. But it's just like, put yourself in situations where you can get lucky. Be in more of those types of situations. Yeah. Yeah, the Bitcoin mining is a bit hard on one. You can perfect that quote a little bit.
That's good. And you also are great at dealing with pressure. And it's because you manufacture pressure situations in practice. Like you do mock tournaments in practice, and you also tell yourself, if you don't achieve a certain time, you can't get coffee the next day, things like that. Which is
that's one of my favorite things I've ever done. That also happened to one of my original coaches, who was kind of hard on us that way, where he would say, I think in a lot of sports, like, you're going to go run around the building 10 times. And I hate running. I'm not good at it. I like have terrible form. I get shin splints all the time. Like, I do a sport that's 15 meters. I can't run more than 100. Like, not doing it. And I think with speed climbing and the way that it's pressured, like it's such a good way to simulate really important races because it allows you to be ready for winning the races and also losing them. Like at the Olympics, like whenever you lose those really important races, you're like, okay, I have to do something still. Like it's whatever. So it was like, I was maybe 13 years old, maybe 14 when I first did that lesson plan where you had to run around the building if you messed up a lap. So I messed up my first round. I ran around the building 8 times. And I was like, I do not want to do this again. And I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? Like, do I change my mentality? Like, did I do something wrong or should I just trust in what I've done? And I kind of went through the process. And at the time, there's no really answer to that question. And I think it's unique for a lot of people. But I ended up just like executing my process and I ran around the building 8 times again. Like it sucked. And I do remember that. And I remember that situation that it kind of put me in. And learning from that was a very pivotal moment in the way that I simulate in trainings where you have some sort of thing you're working against. And it's really fun. Like it's allows you to give yourself pressure and to take training seriously. Like to really put like, I want to say like me versus another athlete on the circuit, like I put in X% more effort in each and every day I go to the gym. And I really value that time. And that's one of the tactics I used to do so.
I think that's the only way you can really work on performing under pressure is by practicing it, by doing that stuff over and over.
No, exactly. Like just really get used to it and embrace your experience. And I think a lot of people also embrace that competition is what you want to do. Like this is what I signed up for. This is what I like. There's so many facets of the career I've chosen that I like a lot. Like I like it holistically. There's parts that, it's a lot of pressure and sometimes I sort of like, I don't really do this anymore, but I think when I was first getting on the stage, I would be so nervous that I would sort of envy the people in the crowd. I'd be like, man, this guy probably like, it's just a parent. He has a good job. He has like, all this, like I'm stuck like being an athlete. Like he doesn't have like regular people don't have to deal with this pressure. Like, especially even thinking about like the commercial implications of, for a sport like speed climbing, like winning an Olympic medal or not can easily determine your ability to do it like as a career. And so like that's a crazy thing to have to deal with. And it can make us like, oh man, I wish I was just a regular person. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I still do love what I do. And I still am holistically happy with like the people I get to talk to, like the experience that are unique, and it makes it all worth it. But like, I definitely think like it's all part of that process.
Yeah. And regardless of whether you win or lose, whether it's at an Olympics, World Cup, or your Instagram post, you're also always great at sportsmanship. Like you always have lots of gratitude towards your competitors, teammates, and coaches. So where does that come from, and why is that so important to you?
I think it's definitely a cultural thing around climbing, and around speed climbing specifically. Like I think it's really always had that sort of, when you're in that small of a sport, it's like we're all in this together. Like if one person can get, attention or a brand deal or a certain sort of success in that facet, like it's good for everyone. And acknowledging that is part of it. But also like I support everyone in the way that I respect them. Like, what I do is quite difficult and I know every part of it. And this is what I find about other athletes. Like I love like going to the Olympics and going to like Olympic types of events because like people understand you. It's like not many people understand the idea of like fully committing and trading your life to be good at one sport. And anyone that does that, I instantly has a good deal of my respect. And so that's what happens. And then just conducting yourself well is you're representing your sport, you're representing your country, like you're representing yourself in many ways. So like, it's important, especially for an individual sport. Like what they do doesn't necessarily affect me. Like it's a comparison almost when you race. Like it's not you're fighting. If I was like fighting someone, I would not be nearly as nice. If I'm directly trying to take away something from someone else and they're trying to take it away from me, it's a very different approach. So I'm not saying like, fighters should be nicer to each other, like by any means, or any contact sport or whatever that. But like, I want to see other people succeed. Like, I think another example is like one of the other athletes, his name is Eric, he's from Spain, and he brought like a lot of warm-up material to the ice. It was like the better comp for everyone, it's better for all of us. I was like, okay, that's a mentality that I really do try to embrace.
And speaking of respecting other athletes, at the Olympics, you try to take a selfie with every country at the Olympics. How many did you end up getting? And then who was the coolest athlete that you met?
So I think there's something like a little under 200 total Olympic delegations. I got to around like 130.
Wow, really? Okay.
I got some rare ones too. I think I definitely can complete it. It doesn't have to be the Olympics, but a selfie with every person from every country, one person from every country.
Is that world record? That might be a world record if you do that.
I think it'd be like a cool art piece for some people. I posted I think 2 videos of them, and then there was some kind of there's political issues with posting certain countries, like you could assume. Especially on that big of a stage with people that don't necessarily like know me, they're like posting like, oh, you were with this country, you should post with. A lot of various rivalries geopolitically. Like it's a complicated world. Like regardless, like I think everyone I talk to is respectful, but a lot of that implications, and also just respecting their privacy. People from certain countries that maybe have less friendly governments towards my country or towards certain other places, I would want to respect their privacy. So I have a good bit that I didn't want to post, and also like. Trying to ask in English, like, hey, is it okay if I post this with you? And really trying to consensually figure out, like, they're allowing me to do this for that reason. And so, but it was really cool. Like, I think I'll eventually figure it out and make like a cool art piece of me with every single person. I've gotten maybe 3 or 4 extra ones since the Olympics. So I think I can complete that for sure.
Do you know who is your favorite athlete, or even just in general, your favorite athlete that you met, either at the Olympics or just in general, that's like someone different? I kind of don't know that you might have.
I love Grant Holloway, the 100-meter or the 110-meter hurdler, gold medalist. He's awesome. They did like an NBC show, the Today Show, for everyone that was a medalist, and he was there, and he was like so funny. And he told me like he won bronze at his first Olympics. He's like, all right, I'm gonna see you in 4 years. You're gonna change the color of that. And I was like, dude, he's awesome. Very uplifting guy. He's literally the best. I think he hasn't lost a race in like 3 years in 110-meter hurdles. So. Yeah, definitely one of my favorite.
Alex Honnold, the person who accomplished one of the greatest athletic feats in human history, you're one of his good friends. So what kind of lessons did you learn in your conversations with him? But before you be nice to him, in my research, I found him in an old video about how speed climbing in under 5 seconds is impossible. So,
yeah, it was funny we actually talked about that.
Yeah.
He has a podcast about climbing, and so I did an interview with him, and he was really cool. Like, a lot of the similar approaches towards doing things, and he always has the mentality which I think is a little bit deranged objectively, but he's just like, when I do free soloing, it's like, oh, the only thing that could happen that's bad is the absolute worst case scenario.
Yeah,
and I was like,
I don't want that. Yeah.
I was like, that's not exactly true, because like that can happen in a lot of different ways and you're still gonna die. But I mean, to each their own. He really enjoys what he does. He has a good, very mature mentality that I kind of have tried to take on, of just like mellowing out almost and not being stressed at various little things, which I think he does really well, because like, I think the example he gave was like, oh, I was in an airport, like people are so stressed for no reason. Like, you're not about to die in the airport. Like, and just like taking a step back and mellowing out is something that I kind of have tried to learn from him. But I remember we did the podcast, we like talked for like 2 hours afterward about just like various things in climbing and how it's developed and comp climbing. Like, I think he really also admires comp climbers and what they do, which is so funny. He's like, I could never deal with the pressure of doing what you do. And him like, dude, like,
deal with that.
And yeah, like he just has a mentality of like, I'm not gonna fall. Like I'm happy with what I do, and he put a lot of effort, like if you've seen the documentary, into making sure he didn't die climbing El Cap. And yeah, so I mean he's a great dude.
In speed climbing, looking at and thinking of a 15-meter wall could drive you insane after a while. So what do you like to do to take your mind off of speed climbing?
Now that I'm a full-time college student, that's about it.
Yeah.
Like so much work that you have to do to be an athlete, especially like I'm not a student athlete in the way that I'm supported by a school, like to get all their access to the resources. So it takes a lot of my time. I like playing chess. I like reading at that point, and that's just about it. Like trying to keep up my relationships, like giving people my time, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. You like languages too?
I like studying languages. I speak a bit of Indonesian, French, and German. Traveling all around those places, you pick up a little bit, for sure.
Do you mind saying hi to fans in each language?
Hello, saya Sam Watson, terima kasih. And then I guess like, hello, ich bin Samuel Watson, danke. And then bonjour, je suis Samuel, et merci. So I said like, hi, I'm Sam Watson, thank you.
Yeah, that's cool. Before we finish, I'd like to ask you the final 5. These are the final 5 questions I ask every athlete. The first question is, what's a misconception about being an Olympian? Maybe something you didn't realize before you got into it, or maybe something that other people don't realize.
that we're all rich.
It's number one thing.
For the like amount of like, it's probably as big as like the World Cup or Super Bowl. I don't know the actual numbers, but there's so many different athletes in different sports, and the way that money is organized, that the per capita of like, you know, being an Olympian is not the greatest in some places. Like a lot of governments really support their Olympic athletes, and a lot of them don't. So it's yeah. Some athletes are not like, you know, this is my full-time job, but like some people, that's not the case.
What's the memory that at the time felt like the worst in your career, but now you can look back at it and either laugh or see the value in?
Definitely the World Championship experience I told you about, where at the time it was just like, you know, how can I do this? Like, this isn't me. Like, why did I, you know, just do so bad under this pressure? But turning around and sort of dropping that ego definitely was very, very helpful. I think it was part of like my coaching, and they really encouraged me to do that, to embrace what I didn't know, especially because strength and conditioning is so complicated. Like the way your body physically responds to stuff, and it's like, I would honestly say it's like learning a different language. Like, and I've tried to like get a basic understanding of it myself, but strength and conditioning is very complicated, and so fully listening to people that know more about that than me is really, really helpful.
Okay, what's the best memory of your career?
I think the first world record last year is definitely up there. Definitely, like, again, I told you that thing of like looking into the crowd and having envy. I think what was funny was, so I actually broke it twice, was both my qualification laps. I ran 4.85 and 4.79. And I think, so for the first one, like a couple of people like were videoing, and like, oh, that's cool. And then for the second one, everyone pulled out their phones. And I was like, that is so awesome. Like, it's like such a cool like experience of like, wow. And then at that event also, like the crowd was so into it. Like it wasn't, I probably no more than like a few thousand people there, but the venue was small. Like the venue like was packed. And I remember like in the finals that time, like if you've ever been to like an NBA playoffs game or like a very, very rowdy arena, like college sports, where like the sound like reverberates in the air. Like it feels like weird almost. And I was like, wow, these people are doing that for me. Like it's like a crazy experience. So yeah, that was those two probably.
What's some advice you could give to younger athletes that want to be in your position? They want to be Olympians. What's some advice you could give them?
I'll keep it as simple as possible. You have to love the process. There's no other way to get to like any levels of success in places. You're gonna not have just linear progression. You're gonna run into some stuff, and you have to love the process in those hard times.
Last question: how do you define the word winner?
I would say executing on your preparation to the best of your ability. A lot of times I'll walk away from competitions, like for example in Paris, I'm like, okay, I did my best. I put in months and months of effort, and I executed on it. And whether that comes out with a gold medal or bronze medal or no medal, then I was content with the process and the input I would say that I put in.